Thank you for joining me today. I was asked recently by a friend of mine if I could alter these two skirts. They're identical. One's for her daughter and one is for her niece, and it's for a dance recital. But the problem is we have a rather pretty trim on the end that we don't want to get rid of. So let's get on with it. Both of the little girls are about the same height, so she gave me a pair of leggings that fit her daughter, and we're going to make the length to match. What I'm going to do first, I think, is I'm going to shorten the underskirt, and the reason is that'll be up and out of the way for when I want to take measurements for here. Let's have a quick look. That's the underskirt, that's there, and the underskirt is about 1.5 inches shorter than the base of the skirt there. I really kind of want that in the middle of the panel. I don't want to go down the seams of the panel because it's where the stitching is and it sometimes pulls everything up. So if you want it to be even, work it to the center or somewhere down the middle of that panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put seam to seam like that, stretch the skirt out so it falls. That should be the center front or the center back of the skirt. It feels like the skirt could have been done on the bias, which is a little bit irritating, but it's fine. It's just the way they did it. I've got the centre of the skirt coming down here. The bottom of the leggings come here, and it's about 3¼ inches that needs to come off. I'm going to round it to 3 inches because it's a nice even number. My friend was worried that the children would fall over the length of the skirt. Obviously, if this comes to their ankle, then the skirt was obviously brushing the ground, which is a little bit dangerous for them. But I think if I take it to 3 inches, that'll be fine, because I need to take it up 3 inches, that's there. So say if I was to cut it off, which I'm not, I would cut it back to 2 inches and then fold the top over like this for a hem. But because I want to keep the length, I'm going to fold that up to 3 inches like this. There we go. I'm going to press that little piece there so I know where it is. Measure across to here to my 3 inches and then press from there across to here so it's nice and even, and then move on round to the next section. Clothes are expensive, and for dance recitals it is only being used once or twice, usually for the dress rehearsal, and if it's just a one-off stage performance then that's it. So I suggested to her, instead of cutting everything off, she have it done in such a way that she can take the hem that I'm putting on off later, and they can have the skirts for another year or two. So I'm going to fold this down into the hem like this, and I'm going to carry on pressing that into position. And the original hem is going to be there for later on, so they don't actually have to re-hem it. It will look fine. Because this is hidden below the dress, nobody will ever notice. But it's giving me time to think about how to do the top layer. And I'll do this on both of the skirts. I'm going to put a pin across the front here, the middle back, and both sides. Line up your side seams because that's how you're going to keep everything even. And the centre, front and back are more or less centre. You can see the curvature here. So long as I keep these points even as I go from quarter to quarter, the hem will go in fine. The other thing when you're doing a hem like this is don't measure too close together, otherwise you're not going to get a nice even curve. So I'm going to pull that out and work my way back to the other measurement, which is about here, because you never know how evenly it was cut. And if it's a little bit wonky, see it goes up and down here, I'd be putting that wonkiness in and then making a mess of it. So by evening out the hem length like that, maybe you could do it in quarters or thirds across each panel, or if they're small panels then halfway. That's the way I'd advise you to do it. Pull that out like that. If I measure from here across, I can visualize the curvature that's going in. This is the second skirt that I'm working on. I'm going to keep them together. The under hem on the other skirt was a lot more even. That's 3 and that's 3. Okay, so as I come in, all I've got to do is straighten that out. And again, all I'm going to do is fold that down into there and re-steam the top of the hem in place. I'm only going to press it down like this so that the fabric underneath can twist where it wants to go. if I iron it in a straight line, everything will go a bit wonky, and I don't want that to happen. Put that in, push that down, and steam into place. Here it's pulling up, and that's why I don't just iron like that, because if I do that it will twist, and I don't want it twisting. So I'll work all the way around on this second skirt. Just slip that under here. It's on the longest stitch, which will be easier for them to remove the stitching from these, and I am going to run the top of the fold here somewhere between this and here on my foot. Depends where it feels comfortable. Sometimes I have to move it further over, and sometimes I can get away with it here, which is at the moment running on the inside of here, and my needle is coming down less than 1/4 of an inch on the inside. I'm going to very carefully put this in. Hold that in there. I'm going to pull the underside a little bit against the top. There's a little bit of juggling here. Hold that down there, pull the inside, pinch it onto the top fabric and sew. Otherwise, everything is going to wrinkle up by the time I get to my pin. Pull the bottom against the top like that, pinch, hold it down and sew. Fold everything in, pull the bottom against the top like that, pull it against each other and sew. And it's still a bit gappy, but there's really not very much I can do about that. And I'm going to pull the top against the bottom, pull that there, and hopefully some more of that will go out. It's doing its own thing. You can see it's not very even, but I'm going to pull the bottom against the top and see how well I can get that to go in. See, if I pull that, it just twists, so that's why I'm not pulling it like that. Push that in, smooth out there at the bottom, pull the bottom against the top, and then pull into position. It's not going to be a perfect hem. As you can see, it's wrinkly. Line up the side seam like that, and just make sure that all of that comes in. Side seam to side seam, and then on round. I think it might be one side of this skirt is worse than the other, because that seems to be going in okay. So it's hit and miss when you're doing things like this. And I'll make my way to the other side of this and start the second skirt. I'm not going to go forward and back, because that's awkward to undo if you're not sure. The other way you could do it is to put pleats like that, so round, and then that forms tucks. And I could have done it that way, but I think the way I've done it would be easier for them, and they should be able to iron most of that out. This second skirt, I'm actually able to just pull top and bottom, and it's going in. Hopefully it's the same on the second side. You're just pulling the bottom against the top to make sure it goes in evenly, and I think that will work. And then coming into the second side here, again, all I've got to do is to pull it. And I'm pulling both, which means that the bottom is being stretched against the top here, and it's not twisting. Again, I am just going to go straight across. I'm not going to do forward and back. You can see the difference. This one is actually wider and more rounded, and that is a lot straighter. Depending on the curvature or how they've done it, depends on what it's going to look like. It looks even from the top side, which is what counts. So I'm going to press those and then get on with the skirts. Because the underskirt is already in position, I don't have to worry about it being pushed up and making the skirt look lumpy. I know that I've taken 3 inches off there, which means I know I have to take 3 inches off here. I'm not going to do it from the bottom, although technically I should. I'm going to take it from here. If I've got 3 inches to there, how long is this? That is about 1 1/8 inches. So I have to measure up from the bottom there 4 inches and 1/8 to here. Move this around like this. From the bottom of here to here, 4 inches and 1/8. That's really ridiculous. I'm going to make it 4 1/4. I have an old ruler here, so I'm going to measure to 4 1/4 and press very carefully there. Straighten the skirt out just a little bit at the top there so I can get that in. And then I'm going to go to the next little stretch, which is here, and line it up like that and press that into place. I'll just make sure that that is more or less in the right place. No, that needs to come out slightly. So I'm going to bring that down and into place here, and then around and into place here. And then I'm going to scooch the skirt around a little bit further and line up my next section. Now here, the base of the skirt goes up, although the trim is in a straight line. I'm not going to worry about that. I will just line up my next sections to the 4 1/4 mark like that, and then on around, twisting the skirt into an arc as I go. Should be more or less even. I'm not putting any pins in just yet. I'll do that in a sec. I'm going to come around here and repeat. I'm going to do the same on both skirts. If you kind of stretch out where you think you're going to be going, it does make it a little bit easier. And again, here. It's slow progress, and I just can't help but always be a little bit fussy about things. I get there, I'm going to move this on round, come into my second seam. Trying to keep where I measure from to in as straight a line as I can so it doesn't twist. And you can ease your way around with a ruler and then line up my seams so that they don't twist. So that's one side of the skirt done. And now carry on around for the second side. Here is where my seams line up. So I'm going to come here like that, twist the skirt up and press. And there, twist it up and press. You will get the knack of how you can do it. So I've got that little section done. And now I'll twist everything around and carry on going. Some skirts won't be as rounded as this, others will be even more so. The skirt will ripple like it here because the bottom of the skirt is that much bigger in circumference than where I'm ironing it to. Turn the skirt the right way round, and I'm going to line up like that, and I'm going to put a pin facing down like that because I might have to sew over the pins. Straighten the skirt at the top, kind of straighten the skirt at the bottom like that, and lay the new top here over the stitching that's already there like that, and pin it all into place, section by section. There's going to be places where there's going to have to be a pleat. I don't think in the big scheme of things it's going to be a major problem. Nobody's really going to see the odd pleat, and then I'll just carry on going. I can adjust it as I sew it, but if you've done most of the work before you start sewing things, it makes a big difference. Now here, looks like I'm going to have to put another pleat in. I'll put a pin here just to hold that in place, and on round. This is hiding the original stitch line, which is what I want it to do. I don't want to have two stitch lines there. And the original trim is left in place. I could stretch it out, but then the skirt would be pulled out of position. Line up the side seam with the side seam there and pin that into position like that. And then work backwards a little bit to make sure that everything is where I need it. I'll have another pleat here somewhere. I'll probably only need maybe 3 or 4 across the front. And now I'll make my way around the other side of the skirt so it stays even. If I do it this way, then I know that each section I'm doing is even to itself. The fabric's nice and thin, so it's not going to bulk up too much, which is good. And on round. So I'm sliding this into position under here. I'm going to run this fold along the inside of the foot here as evenly as I can. And again, I'm going to use the longest stitch that I've got. Here's my first pin, and you can see that there's a slight discrepancy between the top and the bottom. So I'm going to let that move in first before I decide what to do. I'm not going to pull one against the other because I don't want it twisting. I'm going to put a small pleat in as I get to the pin. So I'm going to just tuck that in there, like that. And I want it going that way because the fabric on top will hold it into place. Pop that down on there. There we go. Perfect. And then onto the next section. I don't need to put a pleat there, so I'm going to just carry on going around. But I will get to a point where I need to put another little tuck in there. Probably around about here, because that looks like it's not coming in properly. Maybe I'll put one there. Seems a pretty natural place to put one. Hold that down with that pin and on. This wants to twist, which is a bit of a shame, but it's only twisted a little bit, so it should be okay. You're not going to get a perfect finish with putting a curve in like this, but it will hold, it will work. I think on the whole it will be fine. Nobody's going to see it from where they're sitting, that's the thing. That seems weird that the top is longer than the bottom, which means that they pulled the base in of the skirt to the trim, not the other way around. You see, it's uneven. So I needn't have worried about putting little pleats in, because it would fit anyway. Okay, I will remember that as I go around the other side. Adjust that slightly, it's a wee bit off, but fine. And I'll go around the second side. It's always trial and error with everything you do. But I do recommend you put your pins in, because that does kind of stabilise the sections you put in. So I know that this little section should fit, and then take that pin out, and then the next section should fit. Because the skirt is on a curve, you are able to pull it a little bit and it will stretch into place. And then finish where I started. I'm not going to put forward and back in, I'm just going to bring it in straight over and leave it. All I'm going to do now is press. Where those pleats are, I'm going to try to avoid them. And the reason is some of this has twisted, which I knew it would. I just don't want to put too many twists in there. A little bit of a press here and a little bit of steam. It should hold everything where it's needed. I think that's going to look fine. And as I say, they can undo the skirt next year, and the girls have a pretty skirt that they can wear for 2 years. And from a distance, nobody will realise that they have been done like this. Thank you for joining me on this little project. I was able to shorten the skirts to the length of the trousers, so she should be really pleased with that. It's not done the way I would like it to have been done, and certainly not the way I would have done it if I was doing it for somebody who wasn't going to grow out of a skirt. So if I was to do it for an older teen or an adult, I would have removed the base here, ironed out the seam and then cut it back and then reattached it. But I think for a dance recital it will be perfect. It will last this year and the girls will have pretty skirts for next year as well. If you'd like to hear more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be absolutely brilliant. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao.